Hey everyone, here's my review of Ejanaika at Fuji-Q Highland in Japan. Ejanaika opened in 2006, and it's an S&S 4th dimension coaster. It has a top speed of 78 miles per hour, a max drop of 249 feet, a chain lift, and 14-seat inversions, but only 3 track inversions. In this review, I'm going to go over the layout and theming and rate the ride out of 10 based on these 5 categories: intensity, ride smoothness, duration, fun factor, and inversions. So starting with the layout, as you dispatch backwards, you'll be hyped up by everyone chanting Ejanaika, Ejanaika, and a semi-concerning alarm noise. It's by far the coolest way to exit the station, and it really gets you hyped up for one of the best rides of your life. Then coming out, there's a small dip that leads into a 180-degree turn. During the turn, the seats rotate to where you're almost upside down, giving hang time that feels unnatural. If I had to choose, this would be my least favorite part of Ejanaika. It doesn't do much thrill-wise, and you can tell the restraints weren't meant for hang time, so it's a bit uncomfortable. After that, you'll make your backward climb up the 249-foot lift. There are great views of the nearby hills and mountains while ascending. Then, the little nature viewing session quickly ends once you realize that you're at the top. As the train disengages the lift, the seats flip you on your back, then you do a small pre-drop, and the seats flip you from looking straight up to facing straight down. The visuals while dropping face down are terrifying, and at the last moment, the seats do a flip so that you're riding on your back now. The rotation is very smooth, but it's also very sudden, so there is the possibility that you could hit your legs on the seat. It only happened to me when I sat toward the back, which is one reason why I prefer the front row on this coaster. I think the unobstructed view facing down is awesome, and the flip is more mild. It's still crazy, but it's less intense sitting there. This drop is by far the scariest part of the ride for me, and during my first ride in row 4, I unlocked a deeper tone in my voice. It was probably just me transforming into a true man from riding Ejanaika. And in terms of forces, I remember getting flowjector airtime during the drop. Following the flip is a crazy pullout that you traverse backward and on your back. I don't remember this part of the ride being extremely intense, probably because the drop had me questioning life. But I do remember it being fast and a bit bumpy. Not uncomfortable bumpy, but just enough for it to add to the insanity. Also, because of the restraints, there's no headbanging on Ejanaika, which is nice. After the pullout of the drop, you'll rise into the first Raven turn, where at the top of the element, the seats will do a 360-degree flip. It's really cool rising at that speed and then flipping upside down at 200 feet in the sky. Once again, the seat rotation is smooth and the airtime is very good. It's just floater, but I'd prefer floater for a moment like this because it makes the flip feel more natural. Then, there's another quick valley that sets you up for, in my opinion, the best part of Ejanaika, which is known as the full. It gets its name from the track doing a full flip and the seats doing a full rotation. This is one of, if not the best, roller coaster elements I've ever experienced. It's the only one where I've gotten crazy laterals, ejector airtime, and whip all at the same time. It's extremely disorienting and a lot of fun. It's sort of hard to explain the feeling because it's unlike any other roller coaster, but just take my word for it that it's incredible. The full is followed by another mildly bumpy and intense climb that throws you into an overbank. While the track is overbanking, the seats are facing you inward to face the station. And all while the track is overbanking and the seats are rotating, the train is absolutely hauling through the turn. After that, there's a half, which is basically just like the full, but only half the track and seat rotation. So everything I said about the full applies to the half. The only difference is you're ending facing backward as opposed to ending facing forward. Next up is going to be the second Raven turn. Only this one, the train rides on the outside instead of the inside like the first one. So you're going to rise up while facing the ground. Then as the train's dropping, the seats will rotate just in time so that you're experiencing positives sitting at about a 45-degree angle. And I want to point out that the sensation of being yanked down in the back is so much fun because of how rapidly you drop. In my opinion, this is the most comfortable element of Ejanaika just because the motion and profiling feels so fluid. but ending off the ride is a moment that's so insane and demented that all I could do while riding was just hold my breath. That final moment is the final flip into the brakes. Imagine what I said about the half-half, but shrink the element to about half the size. That's the final flip. There's ejector airtime, crazy whip, and some of the strongest laterals I've ever experienced, all packed into about 1 second. And before your butt even lands back into the seat, you get violently thrown down so that it feels like your feet are going to hit the catwalk. This final sequencing of elements is, in my opinion, the most unhinged part of Ejanaika, which says a lot because the entire ride is unhinged. So now let's go over the theme. Yeah, sadly, Ejanaika doesn't have any theme. The color scheme is sick, and the name Ejanaika is kind of the entire theme itself. But to be honest, the coaster itself is so good that it doesn't need a theme. Moving on to the part of the review where I rate the ride out of 10 based on 5 categories, starting with intensity, and Ejanaika is obviously going to get 10 out of 10. The forces are unlike any coaster in the world, and the disorienting elements are wild. The airtime, positives, and laterals all deliver with this coaster. Next up, ride smoothness. Though Ejanaika isn't glass smooth, it's still very smooth considering the fact that it's nearing 20 years of operation and the trains are some of the heaviest in the industry. It is a bit bumpy in some areas, specifically the valleys, but it wasn't uncomfortable to me, and the restraints make it hard to get headbanging. So, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for ride smoothness. Now for the third category, duration. Though from the time you disengage the lift to the time you hit the brakes is only about 40 seconds, I think it's the perfect duration for a ride this insane. It left me satisfied on the brake run, and that's all I can ask for. So Ejanaika gets a 10 out of 10 for duration. Now time for fun factor, and without a doubt, Ejanaika gets a 10 out of 10 for fun factor. Not many coasters scare me, but Ejanaika is one of them, and that makes the ride so much more fun and thrilling. The entire time, I was either laughing or screaming because I was genuinely scared. And now for the final category, inversions. The inversions found on Ejanaika are one of a kind and so bizarre. Nothing else I've ridden feels remotely close to how Ejanaika flips you upside down, and that's why I love it so much. So I'll be giving Ejanaika another 10 out of 10. And for Ejanaika's final score, it gets a 9.5 out of 10. I really can't find anything to complain about with this coaster. It's got all the forces a good coaster should have, but allows you to experience them in a completely untraditional way. And it absolutely hauls butt through the entire layout. This thing actually feels like it runs way too fast. Another thing I'd like to point out, the ops aren't horrible. Ejanaika has a bad rep due to the slow operations, but the day I went, they weren't bad. The crew was quick and probably operating the ride as efficiently as they could, considering each seat has 3 seatbelts. Anyway, I prefer riding Ejanaika in the front row because the drop is better in my opinion. But if you really want to get whipped, then the back is for you. For the rest of the layout, I couldn't find much of a difference in forces, so choosing your row only affects the drop. Ejanaika is currently my number 10 overall. Just kidding. It's actually sitting up there at number 1.
So nice.
Once again, Ejanaika is freaking crazy and unique as heck, and I love it. So that's going to wrap up my review of Ejanaika at Fuji Q Highland. If you liked this review, then please leave a like and consider subscribing for more theme park content. Thanks for watching to the end, and have a good day.